Ever wondered how many sets per muscle group per week you really need to build muscle? Well, you're not alone. The fitness world is full of theories and approaches to this burning question. Some, like bodybuilding legends Dorian Yates and Mike Mentzer, swear by a minimalistic approach, arguing that just one set taken to all-out failure is the ticket to an incredible physique. On the other hand, some champion high-volume workouts using routines that include 4 to 5 sets per exercise. It's a dizzying array of options, and, if you're like most people, you're probably left wondering which approach is right for you. Well, we're about to dive into this conundrum, break down the science, and find the optimal number of sets for muscle growth. So who's right, and how many sets per muscle group per week should you do? In 2017, a major analysis led by researcher Brad Schoenfeld investigated just this. This groundbreaking study delved into the relationship between the number of sets per muscle group per week and subsequent muscle growth. The research compared different volumes of sets, ranging from as low as 1 to 5 sets to a moderate 5 to 9 sets, and even up to 10 or more sets per muscle group per week. It appeared that there was a dose-response relationship between muscle growth and the number of sets performed. In other words, the more sets you did, the more muscle you built. And the sweet spot? That was found to be at 10 or more sets per muscle group per week, which led to the most significant muscle growth. But as we were about to discover, this more is better approach doesn't necessarily translate into the results we were hoping for. Despite the initial promise of the 2017 study, increasing the volume of our workouts may not skyrocket our gains as expected. It seemed we had misunderstood the research, assuming that there was no upper limit to the benefits of increased volume. In reality, while the study suggested more was better, it didn't clarify just how far we could push it, while still continuing to see better gains. Because as it turns out, more is not always better. 6 years later, a new study challenged the "more is better" mantra. This new research was undertaken by Basvale and colleagues who wanted to further delve into the relationship between the number of sets per muscle group per week and hypertrophy outcomes. This time they didn't just look at the low, medium, and high volume training. Instead they examined lower volumes of fewer than 12 sets, moderate volumes of 12 to 20 sets, and high volumes of more than 20 sets per muscle per week. Just to ensure that the data was standardized, the researchers only considered sets performed within 6 to 20 repetitions. The results? Intriguingly, while both moderate and high volumes led to more growth compared to low volumes, there was almost no significant difference between moderate and high volumes in all the muscles measured. The lone exception was the triceps, which showed a better response to higher volumes. But the main takeaway here? This study suggests that there's some kind of upper limit to the number of sets per muscle group per week you should be doing. That's right, folks. There's a point of too much, where volume doesn't lead to more growth. In fact, in some cases, it might even hinder growth. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's the magical number then? Well, the research points to somewhere within the range of 10 to 20 sets per muscle per week. But remember, this is still a pretty wide range. 20 sets is double the time and work compared to 10 sets. So the next time you're planning your workout routine, keep in mind this upper limit. It's not about pushing yourself to the absolute max every time. It's about finding that sweet spot that stimulates growth without overtaxing your muscles. So, it seems the sweet spot for sets per muscle group per week is somewhere within the range of 10-20 sets. But this wide range between 10 and 20 sets leaves room for personalization and further exploration. And this is where the future of muscle building comes into play. The world of fitness is constantly evolving, and as more research is conducted, we'll gain a deeper understanding of the optimal number of sets for each muscle group. The beauty of this is that it opens up room for individualized training programs. Everyone's body responds differently to exercise, and what works best for one person may not work as well for another. This means that while the 10 to 20 sets range gives us a starting point, there's plenty of room for trial and error and personal experimentation. In the coming years, we might see more precise guidelines emerge, taking into account factors like age, gender, fitness level, and even genetic predispositions. But until then, the key is to listen to your body and adjust your training program accordingly. In the quest for optimal muscle growth, we've discussed the broad range of 10 to 20 sets per week, and how this range leaves room for customization based on individual needs. But, how do you find out what works best for you? Well, there are 5 key factors to consider. First, take into account your individual response. While studies provide a general recommendation, the optimal number of sets can differ from person to person. A 2016 study from the Journal of Sports Science, for instance, found that participants had different responses to low and high volume training, suggesting that what works for one person may be too much or too little for another. Second, pay attention to your exercise execution. In most studies, a set is defined as taking the set very close to failure. However, away from the research labs, people don't push themselves as hard as they think, therefore you may not be doing as many sets as you think you are. Third, consider your rest times. This is important to note because how long you rest will affect how much volume, that is, how many sets per muscle group per week, you need to grow. If you take shorter rests between sets, such as less than 2 minutes, research suggests you'll need to do more sets to get the same amount of growth as you would from taking longer rest. Fourth, think about how you count sets. Not all sets are created equal, and the intensity of your sets can affect the volume you need. Finally, remember that chasing optimal isn't always the best approach. While 10-20 weekly sets might maximize growth, you can still get great results with less volume. So how many sets should you do? Start at the lower end of the range, especially if you're a beginner. As you get more experienced, you might need to increase your volume. But always listen to your body and remember that your optimal set volume is highly individual. Experiment, adjust, and find what works best for you. Remember, the key to muscle building is consistency and effort, even if you're doing less than what's considered optimal. So in conclusion, how many sets per muscle group per week should you do? First off, we would recommend starting off at the low end of the 10-20 weekly set range, especially if you're a beginner. You don't want to end up doing higher volumes than your body can handle. But eventually, as you get more experience, you may reach a point where your body is actually ready for more volume. But remember, how many sets per muscle group per week is optimal for your growth is very individual. Experiment, listen to your body, and realize that you can still make incredible gains by just showing up and doing what you can, even if it's less than what's optimal. Well, there you go. Thank you for watching. Please comment below on your own training volume and what works best for you. Don't forget to hit that like button and share our videos. Until next time.